A blessed Christmas to all of you, and especially to those who are viewing this celebration of the Mass in their homes, in their hospitals, in nursing homes, with your families celebrating this great feast of Christmas. We especially here at Mercy Home want to be attentive and present to all of you who are viewing, knowing that this is a means by which we all can gather as a Catholic community on this wonderful feast. I'm so grateful to Father Scott Donahue and all here at Mercy Home for providing this wonderful service on Christmas Day. We sang that opening song familiar to us, "O Come All Ye Faithful." And when we think about it, that song really was about summoning each other to come and adore this newborn King. We, in fact, do it in a way that helps us understand that when we adore this King, something happens to us. In fact, St. Augustine observed long ago, the one whom we adore is the one we long to imitate. So, in coming to adore the newborn King, we should anticipate that some deep longing in our hearts, maybe that has grown latent, will surface on this feast day. Something that we will discover about ourselves, perhaps that we have ignored or not attended to. And like those shepherds who came to adore the newborn King, went home differently. In fact, they're described in the same way the angel came to announce the newborn King, glorifying God. There is something angelic about them, something heavenly that they discovered about their lives, and so should we as we come to adore this newborn King. And the first thing that we learn about him is that he makes his home, first of all, in a city called Bethlehem. It's a name that means house of bread. So the implication is that his birth is about coming to feed us, to give us nourishment in life, to give us life, for when we eat, we are nourished and our life is sustained. But all of a sudden, we see a twist here, because we are told that in this house of bread, where he comes to feed us, he himself is the food. He's born in a food trough, in a manger, where angels come, where animals come to feed. And so too, he gives us the message that he is born into the world not just to satisfy the hungers that come to us in this life, but to give of his very self. And so that opens for us the possibility that the ways in which we so often find ourselves being nourished by such superficial things that we like to accumulate, that we like to hoard, that we like to possess, really will not satisfy us. But if we are to become like this newborn King, we must turn it around and see that we are nourishment for others, that we share, give our lives for others. We know that's difficult, because inside of us there are those impulses for us to just want to accumulate, to convince ourselves that we are the people who know what it means to live our lives fully because of what we accumulate. And yet Jesus turns it around. And the second thing then that we notice about these shepherds is that they're told, don't be afraid. So often what holds us back from loving others, from sharing our lives, is a fear that the impulses that we have in life to hoard, to accumulate things, is so strong that we really can't turn that around. Those forces are too powerful. Those impulses are too strong. And yet they are told, don't be afraid. And of course, we know from the very beginning of humanity how strong those impulses were. For in the Garden of Eden, What was the sin of Adam and Eve? They just took the fruit and ate. They were the ones who wanted just to nourish themselves for this life. But the Lord gives us today the grace to turn that around, to allow ourselves to be nourishment for others, as the one that we adore, to come to adore, is for us, this one who's born in the house of bread and lying in a manger. And we know in our own experience that when we do give our lives and share our lives and discover a love for others, our lives are different. I often think of how young parents who have a newborn child discover something new about themselves, an inexhaustible source of being able to love that child no matter what happens. We have had those experiences in life. And so it's not surprising that the one who helps us understand our life differently, to turn it around, not to be those who take things in life just to feed ourselves, but to be nourishment for others, is a child. A child, a newborn. And when we see how a newborn calls the best out of us, we begin to discover something new. Some years ago, I was doing a baptism for a family where they didn't get along on either side of the family, and the couple felt that tension. The in-laws were not getting along. I know that might be surprising to you. It reminded me of that old joke about what's the difference between in-laws and outlaws. The outlaws are wanted. But what happened at the baptism was really quite interesting. For there's a moment in which I tell the parents and godparents to place a cross on the forehead of the child. And then I invited all the in-laws to do the same thing. And so what they did was they passed the baby one from another. And as they did that, they began to see each other in a different light. That child brought out something in each of them that perhaps they had ignored. And the tensions that were there before seemed to just evaporate. And at the party afterwards, they were getting along. That's what this newborn child does for us in this season. Melts away those fears, those tendencies to maybe be selfish, to think only of ourselves, to nourish just ourselves, and to really see that we can be like him. We can be food for others. We can live our lives in a way that does not possess and hoard, that devours, but shares and gives. Not to be afraid, that we have that grace and that power in each one of us to live our life that way. And every time that we come to this Eucharistic table, we get another lesson in what this newborn King wanted to teach us from the very day he was born to the time that he died. For on the night before he died, we recall he took bread and said, "This is my body given up for you. This is my blood given up for you." This same newborn child will at the end of his life do the very same thing that he did when he was born. He would be food for others. And in that way, every time we come to the Eucharist, it's an opportunity for us to rediscover once again that deep longing in our heart to really live our lives authentically, not to satisfy our stuff with the mundane and the passing things of this world that give temporary satisfaction to us, but to pay attention to that deep longing in our life to imitate the one whom we adore, to be able to be food for others, to live our lives in a way that shares, that gives, that loves, just as we easily loved that child. And so today, let us summon one another to come to adore this newborn King, and in that way discover that which we deeply long for, to be able to live our lives like his, to imitate him, to imitate the one whom we adore.